fraud in the digital era.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me here. And thank you, Sherry, very much. And to Mike Pratt, who I know is with you every month and is a great representative of our office. And I know if there's any questions you have after tonight about my presentation or about our office, he'd be happy to answer them. As Sherry mentioned, I've been with the office. Actually, I've been there 24 years this year. I like to tell people I started when I was 11, but it was actually right out of college. And funnily enough, tonight I saw Tom Berger, and he was my next door neighbor when I was in college. Isn't that funny? I think this is the first time we've seen each other since that long ago. But I'm really here to talk to you tonight a little bit about something our office does, which is manage fraud, specifically homestead exemption fraud. So you're probably aware, homestead exemption is granted to permanent residents of Florida who claim their home as their primary residency. And there is a fair bit of what we refer to as fraud, but what we also like to call non-compliance. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how that happens and how we tackle it. And I'd love to also hear from you about your communities and things that we could do to help you and your communities help us further with homestead fraud. So just to go over a few of the instances that happen, we see that create this situation with non-compliance with homestead. First of all, is we'll see a lot of people who might have two homesteads. They've owned one property, they buy another property, and they end up with two because they don't disclose the first one. We also see where you'll have residency benefits in another state, certainly in another county in Florida. We do, again, it's the same thing, whether it's Florida or Florida and New York, Florida and Chicago, Florida and anywhere. You can only be a true resident in one place at one time. We also see married couples, people who are getting married after they've both owned homes and they don't give up one of the benefits. When you become married, it is as if you've become one, and there can only be one exemption per married couple. So we'll see where they marry, but they don't disclose or ask us to remove the exemption on the other home that they're not living in. Obviously, they're going to live in one or the other. We also are seeing a lot of children who are retaining their parents' homestead when their parents have passed away. That happens probably most frequently where they haven't probated or the estate, and the estate remains, the home, the property remains in their parents' name for, it can go on for years and years and years, and they don't disclose to us that they've passed away. We have quite a few ways of finding that now. I'll tell you a little bit more about those. And then, of course, the other thing that a lot of people know about is rental of homesteads. There are laws about how long you can rent your homestead for. It's actually, you can rent it less than 30 days a year. You can only do that for 2 consecutive years. That law has just recently changed to that limit of 30 days. So if you're renting your home for any longer than that, it's technically not your home, and your homestead exemption has to come off. So how do we handle this in our office, all these different situations? We have 3 full-time people who are on our investigations team, and they are combing our records regularly and also handling fraud investigation requests that come in from you, from the public. We have on our website a place where you can fill out a short form and tell us what you know, and we go ahead and look into it from there. We have, the rest of our staff are obviously also looking for this when people file for homestead and so forth each year, so I'll talk a little bit more about that too. We have collected this year alone $750,000 in back taxes for homestead fraud. We're holding on about another $750,000, so we'll be close to the $2 million mark collected this year before the end of the year. In the last 9 years since we started this program, we've collected over $4.6 million in taxes. Now those are tax dollars, not market value, but actual dollars coming back into the coffers of the county. We do some things every year as a standard procedure that I always like to tell people about, because you all probably receive, you that have Homestead, a small pink card every January 1st. And that card, if it doesn't get to you, actually comes back to us. In other words, it doesn't get forwarded. So every year of the 330,000 homesteads that we manage in the county, we get back about 13,000 cards. Now, we take those cards very seriously. We look at all of them. We actually scan them into a computerized system so that we can look at them on screen rather than handling them, which is more difficult, putting them in order and so forth. And we usually throw out all what we call the temporarily aways. As you know, the card comes on January 1st. Lots of people go away for the holidays. Some will go away for a month or 2 months, and they'll do what's called a temporary away with their mail. And that's not a problem. We just take those out right away. We then start mailing questionnaires to all the other people. And those questionnaires get forwarded to wherever the mail is going. And sometimes people answer them, and they are honest with us and say, well, I've had to leave, or I've moved into a retirement home, or I'm about to sell my property, so on and so forth. And some we don't hear from ever. But of that process, of those 13,000, this year we denied Homestead to 4,800 of them. So close to 5,000 were just simply taken off the roll. Now, if we did that incorrectly, there's an opportunity for people to petition and to call us, and if they explain, no, it was a misunderstanding, we go ahead and fix it. We're not, certainly not, we try not to be difficult about it. We want to get it right is our goal. But those 48,000 returned $5.5 million to the tax roll this year already. So it's important that that card get to you. That's the first message. We also take about 17,000 new homesteads a year. Now, that's up a little bit over last year, and actually is the highest we've had in probably 6 years. At the height of the market, just from interest's sake, in 2006, we took 33,000 homesteads a year. We were running 30 to 33,000 for quite a few years there. So 17,000 kind of tells you a little bit about what the market is doing now. I mean, it's getting stronger. Last year we only took 15,000 and change, so it's going up a little bit. But to give you an idea of how fast the market was moving in 2006, we were at double that number. So those 17,000 new applications we take every year, we immediately investigate their information. We will check their driver's license records and their voter records, and we will, on the application, you have to state where you came from, what your previous address was. We immediately look into their previous address to see if they're receiving any residency benefit there. If we have somebody who discloses that they're married, but their spouse doesn't file with them, we will look into where their spouse is living, because again, that's often what happens. You have somebody who tries to get two by having one spouse apply one place and one spouse apply another. So that's really an effort to stop any kind of fraud before it starts, which saves everybody money. It certainly saves us, because it's time-consuming doing the investigations. So how do we find fraud? What are the different ways we find it? Of course, the thing that everybody hears about is the neighbors reporting on each other. You know, that we're always getting nosy neighbors reporting things to us. And we do get some of that. We actually find a lot of it is not the best information, only because the neighbor may not have the full story. Their neighbor may have had to go into the hospital, may have had to go and live with their kids for a while, and maybe the person coming in and out of the house is just a caretaker, not a renter. So we like hearing from other residents, you know, well, I know my neighbor is renting, but we like also to be able to have some evidence of that, because we obviously, for good reason, don't want to take off somebody's homestead simply on hearsay or from one person's word over another. We also do a lot of constant reviewing of our own data, editing reports that we run internally. At the moment we're working on some files from a long time ago, people who have had homestead 20 and 25 years. We're actually coming up with a lot of those kids who are still receiving their parents' homestead benefits through that report. We also share data with municipalities and with Palm Beach County. Recently, Palm Beach County started providing us with data when people sign up for a new water or utility account. Palm Beach County will review, again, our Property Appraiser PAPA database, which many of you are probably familiar with, our website, and they'll look and see whether the property that's being, a new utility account is being asked for on, and they'll check whether there's a homestead there. And if there is, they'll contact us and let us know, and we'll look into it from there. We also, and here's why I was excited about talking to you all tonight, we also hear from homeowners associations. You guys have some really good data, including rental information that you may, if you have a rental application process. It's as easy as looking again at our website to see if there's a homestead on a property and letting us know if you're aware of a new renter in a unit that was either lived in or possibly hasn't been lived in, which we do also run into for some time. We use a lot of digital data to help us, everything from driver's license information. We get the death registry from Vital Statistics every month. Now the problem with that is only Florida, so we find a lot of people will go to where their kids are, or go home, as it were, up north somewhere, and then they may pass away there. And so we aren't aware of that because the Vital Statistics records are just from the state. But we certainly get that every month, and we check it over every month. We also, when we're told that there's a rental situation, we'll look online, because of course nowadays a lot of people will advertise their rentals online. So it's amazing how much information you can just find by typing in an address, and one of these useful real estate sites will come up and they'll tell us, oh yeah, that house is for rent, and this is how much they want, and this is when it was available, and so forth. We also subscribe to a people search software system. You've probably seen those when you try to look somebody up on the web and it says, pay here to get more information about Mr. Jones. Well, we pay there, and certainly we don't pay one by one, but we have a subscription service where we can look up more detail about people. And that's often how we find the out-of-state deaths, because on there you'll get from the Social Security Administration, who we've tried to get for years to give us deaths countrywide, but they haven't given it to us as of yet. But we'll find those on those people search softwares. We'll also find their other address. We'll find out where they actually are, which is also very useful to an investigation of fraud. We have relationships with all 66 other counties throughout Florida. We communicate with them very regularly. We have a sort of email pool with them. We also have contacts across most of the states, the major boroughs in New York and New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts. I was looking at a lien today in Lake County, Illinois. If we don't have that relationship, we simply look up the agency online and we contact them directly. Almost every jurisdiction in the nation has some form of a residency-based property tax exemption, so it's not hard. They're usually interested also in exchanging data with us and knowing what's happening here for the same reason we are. So we have good cordial relationships with those. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about what happens when we do find actual fraud, when we've discovered it and we've said that it's now time that we collect back taxes. Florida law allows us to collect up to 10 years of back taxes and that is based on both the exemption amount, so $25,000 homestead is worth about $500. The new second $25,000 is worth about $300 because it doesn't apply to the school board. I hope you can hear me. Can you? Okay. And we also can collect any cap savings that they may have received by having the homestead. As you know, if you have homestead exemption, your property is capped at 3% increase in value a year, even if your property went up 10%. Well, we're going to collect on that 7% as well. So the numbers can get pretty steep pretty fast. Well, how we do it is we give taxpayers 30 days to pay that simple tax amount that has been not paid, that should have been paid for all those years. And if they ask us, we send them a letter. We say, this is what we've discovered, and this is what your taxes you owe will be. And give us a call if you have any questions. It's interesting to me that probably only about 30% of them call. These other 70% get out their checkbook and write a check. So it sort of tells us that we're doing the right thing by doing this, that we're not getting too many of them wrong. Now, if they call us and there's been a very big misunderstanding, again, we're happy to talk to them and fix it. We don't want to be difficult about this. We just want to make sure that we're following the law. If they ask for so we give them 30 days to pay that tax amount. If they ask us for an extension, we give them one. Sometimes it's a big figure. People can't pull that kind of money together fast. And again, those 30% can't. The 70 seem to be able to. But we'll give them an extension. But then once we've exhausted the extension, by statute, we can add a 50% penalty, 50, and 15% interest per year.
Wow.
15 is the interest, 50 is the penalty per year. So you can see how the number just can massively appreciate if you don't pay just the tax amount or ask us for a extension to pay just the tax amount. The average lien I see across my desk is usually between $4,000 and $6,000. That's about the average lien. Sometimes we're only talking about a couple years. Quite often in the marriage situation, in the death situation, you know, you're not talking about years and years and years. But there are the odd one that come across that are very, very big. One I looked at today, the gentleman was in a multi-million-dollar home, actually in East Boca, and he owed, without the penalty and interest, $230,000. He had over 10 years of duplicate exemption. We were going to pay, but if he doesn't, his lien would be filed, and it would be around $330,000. So some of them are big money. The lien becomes a priority lien against your property. We file it with the clerk of the court. Once we reach that point where it appears there's going to be no payment made. And what that means is that if the property sells, if the person passes away and the property goes into probate, the lien is satisfied first. And there's no question about that. It's actually tax money, so it's satisfied. So we're interested in just sharing with you this information so you know about it and can share it with your residents, but also to say that we would love to hear from you if you see instances of fraud. And we're not trying, again, we're not trying to be punitive. We don't want to be that way. We just simply want to make sure that people that are entitled to a benefit are getting it. And as my boss Gary Nicholas always likes to say, one person's exemption is one person getting an exemption means another person is paying more tax. And that really is the truth. Anytime you have two exemptions, then someone else is picking up your tax burden that you should have been paying. So we're interested in talking to you about that. I've got some of my cards with me. I'm happy to give them out and share them with you. You can also, if you don't do that tonight, you can always use our website under the How Do I. There's a homestead fraud section. It says How Do I report homestead fraud. You just click on it, click through, it just asks you for some basic information, and somebody will get back in touch with you. You can also do it anonymously. You can't use the website if you do it anonymously. You just have to give us a call on the phone, or write us a letter, the old-fashioned snail mail. We're happy to get those too, because email, when you exchange email with the government, it becomes part of the public record. So that's the only reason I caution that if you want to do it anonymously. But we're happy to hear from you either way, and hope that you'll take away some good information from this and let us know. And let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them.